slow play drumbeat grows louder and louder every week, to the point now that they're making overt references to it on the broadcast.
So there's plenty of other guys that have to get faster. Tom definitely is more deliberate in his conversations, always has been since he's been on tour. I just think about Joe Scavern, when those two started working together, how their conversations always seem to just keep on going and going.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
At some point, these 80s are to learn we don't need to hire ex-NBA guys. I need guys with college experience, who's gone out and recruited, who knows how to develop talent. NBA guys with no college experience don't work in college basketball. I understand they run NBA-style offenses, but it doesn't mean they can run college programs.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
In a short format tournament like this, like the Olympics, now this is even smaller, only 4 teams, who's got the best goaltending? You're talking 3 round robin games and then a knockout with 4 teams. So you're playing 5 games.
I'm not sold yet, Mike, on the USA stuff, on the merch, but I think I'm sold on the USA at least being in the final.
Only on SportsGrid.
20-34. They have 14 games below 500. Any given night, you have no idea who is going to play for Philadelphia. Embiid has missed so many more games than he has actually played this year.
I will not bet on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I will not bet on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I will not bet on the Ravens because for the last 4 years now, I do it every year, and I want to hit myself in the head with a bat.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. Thanks for joining our midweek edition of the show, as we got a lot planned for you coming up this morning and this afternoon. Some sports betting news in Vermont and Missouri, the very latest on positive news from sports betting from one state and maybe negative from another. A full slate of college basketball games last night, games tonight. Michael DeCourcy will join us from Sporting News with the latest on the hardwood. Also, from the podcast tomorrow will be televised. We'll bring in Simon Applebaum to discuss the NBA's All-Star Game, the ratings, some new streaming options in Major League Baseball, and certainly a whole lot more. Tonight, the NBA will return, finally. No games Monday, no games Tuesday, just one game tonight. Spring training games do begin, thankfully, in Major League Baseball coming up this weekend. We'll bring in baseball guests between now and opening day. Lots of fun guests to talk to as well. All right, so let's get started here. And a different kind of way to start the show today, because there's really good news for those of you who live in Missouri. It does look like you're finally going to be able to bet on sports coming this summer. The date that they're looking to open up online sports betting, folks, for those of you who live in the Midwest, June the 30th. That's when it looks like the first day that you'll be able to do this. I know it's a long time. They approve sports betting here at the beginning of the year. It feels like this is going to take 8-9 months to get going, and there's no official deadline, but that is the goal. First, the goal was, I believe, the Super Bowl. Then we had heard the NCAA tournament. That is no longer there, but I suppose, look, since football drives the bus, getting this on board before August and before the start of football season has to be a goal for Missouri. So those of you in Kansas City, St. Louis, everywhere else, get ready. You'll be able to bet. Now, what about if you live in Vermont? Yes, you can legally bet on sports, but there is a repeal possibility going on in that state. Didn't see this coming. A trio of lawmakers said they want to abandon sports betting, and this is just after a year after they just launched it. There's a representative that is named Troy Hendrick, another one named Michael Moricki. They want to repeal the statutes that authorize online sports betting and the state lottery. Kind of bizarre. Vermont was the final New England state to legalize sports betting in 2023. They seem to be potentially wanting to walk it back, but you must know that since 2018, no state has ever walked back the legalization of sports betting. So for the time being, it would appear that this is just a story to watch. You can still bet on sports in Vermont. Meanwhile, all of these people who were robbing these athletes and breaking into their houses while they were playing football have finally been charged. This is good news. 7 men have been charged by federal prosecutors for their roles in a string of burglaries at homes of prominent professional athletes. That, of course, includes Joe Burrow. You may have also heard about Bobby Portis of the Milwaukee Bucks, also Patrick Mahomes, lots of players. And the FBI issued warnings to sports leagues about these crime organizations to keep an eye out for them. But these people have been caught. No doubt they're going to be made an example of as well. All right, college basketball last night, no big surprise. Michigan State and Tom Izzo playing in a big game and winning a big game. They beat Purdue. Final score 75-66. MSU now 21-5 on the season and another great year in the Big Ten, 12-3. They've won 3 out of 4. They're in a half game out right now of 12th ranked Michigan, and they play Friday night, so that could be a big game. Here's Tom Izzo afterward.
And I keep saying it. You know, I'll challenge anybody that we have some of the neatest things. And I had those guys in the locker room after, and I said, you know, some of you guys will be gone this year, some next year, some the year after. Remember not to forget where you came from. They were happier behind the bench. They were happier in the locker room, some of my players. And Tyson's mom and dad said, hey, we might come back for the last one. You know, I mean, it's, I don't know. I am the most fortunate human being in America that I have that kind of culture and that kind of situations. And so what did it mean? It meant a lot, you know. Tyson enjoyed where I practiced. Malik came in late, came in the locker room, and of course after the game. So, yeah, it's meant a lot. Meant a lot. I think meant a lot to the players. And you're right, you know, those numbers you just threw out. He's had our number and has done a hell of a job.
A big showdown between Michigan State and Michigan coming this weekend. Not much of a showdown last night. Mississippi State's had a great season in the SEC. They beat Texas A&M handily last night. Big surprise here, 70-54. The Aggies just 54 points yesterday. Josh Hubbard had 25 points. It was their biggest loss in SEC play this season. So the disappointment could not be more for, of course, A&M's head coach Buzz Williams, who said the offense, as noted, with 54 points, did not do enough last night.
They were great. They were great on both sides of the ball. I thought their defense for sure helped their offense. And similar to your question, I thought our offense really hurt our defense. We turned the ball over 28% of the time when we had it. That's a credit to Coach Jans, their staff, their players. They were tremendous. And we're playing in a broken floor. They're scoring layups. They're scoring threes in transition. We're fouling in transition. That's just mathematically hard to overcome, and that's a credit to their plan and a credit to their execution.
Another team in the top 15 picking up a nice win. Wisconsin last night beats Illinois. They've won 5 straight. Final score 95-74. Wisconsin is averaging over 80 points a game. This is going to be the most they've ever scored in their school history in terms of average. And Greg Gard said, their head coach, by the way, it's not how you start, it's how you finish.
Well, I thought, you know, in the first half, it took us a little bit to kind of figure out some things defensively because with Ivicic not in the starting lineup, it changed a little bit with how they're playing and what we prepared for. So I think once we got a feel for that, I thought defensively, specifically in the second half, we were much better. Took better care of the ball in the second half. And then I felt obviously getting to the free throw line was important, and that's an accumulation effect of us coming in waves and moving the ball and being able to play downhill and play through the post. Like Steve, I thought was really good tonight, really aggressive, really physical. So it's a combination of all those things that. So this team does a really good job of kind of adjusting and learning as the game goes on and keeps their foot on the gas, depending on what the opponent's trying to do.
Also, number 20 ranked UConn picks up a win last night. They closed 27-6 in the final half, 66-59 the final. Number 2 team in the country, the Gators keep on winning, 85-63 this time, a victory in a big backcourt game over Oklahoma. Walter Clayton Jr. had 18 points. Will Richard had 14. Meanwhile, talk about the opposite side of the spectrum. It is the Kansas Jayhawks. What has gone on with them this season? BYU beat them last night 91-57. And Jayhawks head coach Bill Self seems to be searching for answers, including off the court relaxing. Weird stuff.
The thing about we need to regroup, get away from each other for a day, go home, and hopefully be able to, a lot of times with teams, there needs to be something happen to pull everybody together that is us against the outside. And, we're going to have an opportunity to do that for sure. So a lot of teams go through it. We just haven't been through it much at all in a long time. So, but certainly we're going to go through it this time. So all we have of each other, and we're going to have to we're going to have to be strong for each other and be good teammates and good leaders and understand that, it's if we need to look in the mirror, all of us, and what can we do to change the momentum, and then whatever we commit to doing, then do it. And tonight we were 1 foot in, 1 foot out in how we guarded and a lot of other things right from the jump. I mean, it was crystal clear how we wanted to try to guard them, and right from the jump we doubted it and ended up hurting ourselves right there early.
Yeah, tough season for the Jayhawks, and still on the inside looking out of the tournament, but who knows? All right, in Major League Baseball, we're going to have some automated ball strike challenging system coming up in spring training, so look for that coming to Major League Baseball games, and 60% of the Cactus and Grapefruit League games will use the ABS tested out this spring. Rob Manfred, commissioner of Major League Baseball, speaking of spring training, says the Dodgers have done everything within the rules, and saying that, basically they're looking at labor issues, looking at TV issues, but as of right now, there have been some complaining, naturally, about the money being spent by LA. Alex Bregman, meeting with the media yesterday, says he'll play anywhere, third, second, doesn't matter to him. Of course, he's a new member with the Boston Red Sox. So is Adam Ottavino. He signed on with them yesterday, and the Astros signed former Gold Glove Award winner Brendan Rodgers to a minor league deal with an invitation to spring training. Tonight, the Lakers will take on Charlotte. They are 12.5-point favorites as the NBA returns this evening. Coming up next, we'll get back to college basketball. Michael DeCourcy of Sporting News on deck. Don't go away.
Slow play drum beat grows louder and louder every week, to the point now that they're making overt references to it on the broadcast.
So there's plenty of other guys that have to get faster. Tom definitely is more deliberate in his conversations, always has been since he's been on tour. I just think about Joe Scover when those two started working together, how their conversations always seem to just keep on going and going.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
At some point, these 80s are going to learn we don't need to hire ex-NBA guys. I need guys with college experience who's gone out and recruited, who know how to develop talent. NBA guys with no college experience don't work in college basketball. I understand they run NBA-style offenses, but it doesn't mean they can run college programs.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
In a short format tournament like this, like the Olympics, now this is even smaller, only 4 teams. Who's got the best goaltending? You're talking 3 round robin games and then a knockout with 4 teams. So you're playing 5 games.
I'm not sold yet, Mike, on the USA stuff, on the merch, but I think I'm sold on the USA at least being in the final.
Only on SportsGrid.
Patino himself, in a clip that we just played, said basically the stats are not backing up the team's wins.
St. John's is offensive glass. That's where a lot of opportunities for St. John's came from. St. John's does not shoot the basketball well. It might even be fair to say they shoot it poorly. They were 3 of 16 from deep last night, but it doesn't seem to matter to them.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Just a couple of weekends in February left before we get to it all. March Madness is almost upon us. Michael DeCourcy is with us, and bracketology, Mike, for a lot of people has begun. I mean, we are closing in on that time. We got to figure out who's in and who's out. It's great to have you back here on the show, and certainly always fun to talk about when 2 teams in one state are the number 1 and number 2 team in the country. Not the case anymore, of course. The Gators are number 2. But Auburn beat Alabama over the weekend. And man, Mike, I mean, wouldn't it be something if we head into the NCAA tournament with both Auburn and Alabama as 1 seeds. I mean, that is a possibility unless either of them get upset in the conference tournament.
Strong possibility, Craig. It's going to be very difficult for anybody to supersede any of the number 1 seeds. Florida has the weakest resume, but they've got that Auburn win on Auburn's court that no one's going to surpass that victory this year. No one's going to gain a better win. When I say the weakest case, their non-conference schedule, Florida wasn't great. And the conference schedule just has worked out so that they have had less traffic with the very best teams than some others, but they have played superbly. So they're in great shape. And Auburn and Alabama, I think, are fairly secure. Now, it gets pretty tough for Alabama coming up. They have to go to Mizzou. There's some concern there, but still, who is going to supplant them eventually? The Big Ten contenders, Purdue is stepping back a little bit. Wisconsin's moving forward. Michigan State's doing a little better, but they're not. They don't have the resumes Alabama has. So it's going to be hard for Auburn and Alabama not to get 1 seeds. And it's quite likely that the SEC will get 3 of the 4.
Yeah, it feels that way as of now, depending on the Gators too. But you're right, Alabama's schedule. I mean, maybe, Mike, that's really the key here because, I mean, they play all top 25 teams between now and the end of the regular season. Missouri, Kentucky, MSU, and then look at this finish. Tennessee, Florida, and Auburn. And you know, the other part of this too, I guess if you think about it, Mike, is that if Alabama was to scuffle a little bit down the stretch and potentially lose at Tennessee, Tennessee could jump into that 1 seed category too.
It's possible. They do have that Kentucky sweep loss that is problematic for the Vols. But we've seen what schedules like that, if you want to go back to the end of the NFL season when the Steelers had to go through Philly, Baltimore, and Kansas City at home. We've seen what that can do to a team, no doubt. So it's going to be very difficult for the Crimson Tide. I got to wonder exactly who the Tide ticked off to get a closing schedule like that. What a gauntlet that is. And then you go into the SEC tournament and maybe you get a relatively lighter quarterfinal game, but then you have to go right back into that grinder. I do not envy the Crimson Tide at all.
No, tough schedule for them. All right, so tonight it is at Missouri, and the spread tells you everything. They're going to be pumped up tonight. There's no question about that. 1.5 point favorites, Missouri. Total 169.5. We always have to use this little qualifier. People are wondering, wait a second, is that right? 169 in a college basketball game? Folks, it is Alabama. When Alabama plays, the totals are high. Every game. Get used to it.
Yes.
If you're not used to it, they're playing the highest totals usually in Division I. So that being said, you know how pumped the kids are going to be tonight in Missouri, maybe to knock off Alabama. You think they get it done?
Well, this Missouri team has been so impressive in the resilience to come back from 0-18 a year ago in the SEC to being one of the top 5 or so teams in the league. It's a remarkable performance by Dennis Gates, and his team. I like Missouri in this circumstance. But the one thing that is interesting is that if we get toward that total, that'll mean we're playing Alabama ball. And Missouri doesn't mind getting up and down a little bit, but that's not their game. They want to play in the high 70s. So it's not really them to go well into the 80s the way Alabama wants. So I would think that if you believe in Missouri as a winner, then the under might also be a play.
Michigan State, as you mentioned, during Izzo season is very dangerous. And here we are. They beat Purdue last night, 75-66. It is almost impossible, I would say, Mike, right now, to not already try and fast forward this thing to this matchup coming up this weekend between Michigan State and Michigan. I mean, in all likelihood, I think that's going to determine the regular season winner.
Yeah, if Michigan gets that, it'll probably be impossible to catch them because everyone else except Wisconsin will be at 4+ losses, and Michigan will still be at 2. Getting that game at Ohio State was huge for the Wolverines in terms of maintaining and keeping a cushion on that Big Ten regular season lead. And I think that would be a huge accomplishment for the Wolverines to come back from essentially the bottom of the at that point 14-team Big Ten to go to the very top of the 18-team Big Ten. What an achievement for Dusty May and for the Wolverines if they're able to do that. It'll be a different game for the Wolverines relative to Michigan State than Purdue was, because one of the things that Tom Izzo said after that game is something that we've talked about where I work at the Big Ten Network, and that is that Michigan State's unique quality is that they are never the same team night to night, and that's true not just in how they play but who they play. They have a group of about 10 players that they rotate, and whoever works against that particular opponent is who plays that night, and the players have bought into that, and it's worked really well. They're going to have to be bigger against Michigan, and they're going to have to be more mobile, because Danny Wolf, maybe they've taken to calling guys like this unicorns because he's so different than everybody else. Unicorns don't exist, so I think we need a better word, because I know Danny Wolf exists. I have seen him do damage to every team just about he's played. 7 feet tall, handles, passes, shoots, plays on the move. He's a real challenge for this group of Spartans. Maybe Xavier Booker gets a bigger run on this weekend when they play the Wolverines, because they don't have anybody else that's that mobile.
Yeah, it should be a fun finish to the regular season of college basketball, and Mike will be with us along for the ride here on Sports Grid. Great to catch up with you, Mike, and enjoy the big games this weekend, and we'll see where things shake out next week. Thanks again.
You bet.
All right, Michael DeCourcy joining us, courtesy of Sporting News, talking some college hoops. All right, coming up next time for the Sports Grid Sound Off, we'll check in at spring training around Florida and Arizona. Don't go away.
Slow play, drum beat grows louder and louder every week, to the point now that they're making overt references to it on the broadcast.
So there's plenty of other guys that have to get faster. Tom definitely is more deliberate in his conversations, always has been since he's been on tour. I just think about Joe Scavern, when those two started working together, how their conversations always seem to just keep on going and going.
The Smiley Show, only on Sports Grid.
At some point, these 80s are to learn we don't need to hire ex-NBA guys. I need guys with college experience who's gone out and recruited, who know how to develop talent. NBA guys with no college experience don't work in college basketball. I understand they run NBA-style offenses, but it doesn't mean they can run college programs.
Betting above the rim, only on Sports Grid.
In a short format tournament like this, like the Olympics, now this is even smaller, only 4 teams, who's got the best goaltending? Over, you're talking 3 round robin games and then a knockout with 4 teams. So you're playing 5 games.
I'm not sold yet, Mike, on the USA stuff, on the merch, but I think I'm sold on the USA at least being in the final.
Only on Sports Grid.
Patino himself, in a clip that we just played, said basically the stats are not backing up the team's wins.
St. John's offensive glass. That's where a lot of opportunities for St. John's came from. St. John's does not shoot the basketball well. It might even be fair to say they shoot it poorly. They were 3 of 16 from deep last night, but it doesn't seem to matter to them.
NewsWire, only on Sports Grid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on Sports Grid. We're going to hit the Sports Grid sound off, go to Florida and Arizona for some spring training sound off here on the show today. Talk a little Red Sox, some Cubs, and of course some Mets as well. It's how we do it. Time now for the Sports Grid sound off. All right, first up, we check in Fort Myers, and the Boston Red Sox have been one of the stories of spring training thus far. No games have happened, so drama is what everybody loves to talk about. They, of course, signed Alex Bregman, late last week, and Rafael Devers says he's not going to play anywhere else except third base. Bregman says he'll play anywhere. We're hearing a lot of position shifts. Mike Trout is moving to right field. Wilson Contreras moving to first base. But look, I mean, Devers has been the Red Sox best offensive player for a number of years. And so is it owed to him to still be able to continue to play the position? It sure seems to feel that way, at least from his teammate, Tristan Casas, who says Devers is the third baseman.
I think it's Rafi Devers' position. I think he's the third baseman, and at that point, that's where it stands. And he's done it for a really long time now, and I think he's only getting better at that position. I think his defense is getting better every single year. We don't know what the future holds, but we know it holds Rafi Devers. So I think he's got to play defense. It's going to keep him athletic, and he's going to hit because of him being at third base. He doesn't know any other position. He doesn't want to play any other position, and he's going to fight for it, even if it's with any of the younger guys, any new guy. I think he's the best third baseman in the league. I wouldn't take anybody over him. So I think he should play third base. Yeah.
So you think Bregman should play second? Rafi plays third.
I think Bregman should play second base. Yeah. I think he's going to make the transition well. I think he's athletic enough to, and I think Trevor, is going to play an awesome shortstop.
Surprising comments a little bit there. A young player with the Boston Red Sox. Like the honesty, that's for sure. All right, so the Cubs were one of those teams that were in the mix for Bregman. They did not get him. They ended up signing Justin Turner to a one-year deal. If you can name all the teams Justin Turner's been on the last 3 seasons, I'll have a prize for you. Dansby Swanson, still very familiar with Turner's game, talked about what he adds to the clubhouse.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he's obviously a good sounding board for anything. Like I said, he's experienced. He's been successful. He's kind of like not been successful and then been successful, like worked his way from being a good player to being a great player. So I think that is always something that can never be, overstated, I guess. Just the importance that it takes for someone that can change the trajectory of their career, really, and to be able to do it for a long time and to be able to be a part of a winning, culture and group for a long time. All that stuff is valuable and important, and obviously, is good for any of us. It's not just good for Matt. It's good for all of us just because that experience and the ability to kind of like explain it and coach it, if you will, because he taught himself how to do it, I think it's going to be even more beneficial for a lot of guys than I think we even realize at this moment. So
Turner fits nicely into the Cubs lineup going into the season. Meanwhile, Steve Cohen, owner of the New York Mets, made his first appearance at spring training in Port St. Lucie yesterday. Among some of the topics that were discussed were the fact that Cohen keeps continuing to spend money, but Mets fans in particular last year didn't show up as much as he would have liked to. That's one of his sort of off-season beefs going into 2025.
Yeah, I didn't like it. Okay, that really bothered me. 18th in attendance when we're right in the middle of a pennant race. I've said this before. The series against the Nationals, right before the final Philly series, I think there were 18,000 fans in the stadium during a great pennant race. And so I'm really hopeful this year. I mean, I'm told that usually attendance lags performance. And so I'm really looking forward to this year being a year when the fans come out. I think the fans are having a great time. I mean, when I look out on the stadium, I think it's a great game presentation. We have a great team, I think. I'm really excited I think it's going to be a fun place to be this year.
Yeah, I mean, Mets are one of the favorites to, of course, get back to the postseason this year. Whether or not that happens still hinges, of course, on a lot of different issues. They have had one health issue. Frankie Montas, their starting pitcher, did say this morning and confirm that it's a pretty serious oblique or lat strain. Whatever he has is going to be out 2 months, it looks like minimum, maybe return some point in June or July. All right, we'll take a quick time out here on NewsWire. When we come back next, Pat Evans joins us courtesy of Legal Sports Report. Sports bettors in Vermont. Is time up for you? How can that be? We'll be right back.
slow play drum beat grows louder and louder every week, to the point now that they're making overt references to it on the broadcast.
So there's plenty of other guys that have to get faster. Tom definitely is more deliberate in his conversations, always has been since he's been on tour. I just think about Joe Scover and when those two started working together, how their conversations always seem to just keep on going and going.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
At some point, these 80s are going to learn we don't need to hire ex-NBA guys. I need guys with college experience who's gone out and recruited, who know how to develop talent. NBA guys with no college experience don't work in college basketball. I understand they run NBA-style offenses, but it doesn't mean they can run college programs.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
In a short format tournament like this, like the Olympics, now this is even smaller, only 4 teams, who's got the best goaltending? You're talking 3 round robin games and then a knockout with 4 teams. So you're playing 5 games.
I'm not sold yet, Mike, on the USA stuff, on the merch, but I think I'm sold on the USA at least being in the final.
Only on SportsGrid.
Patino himself, in a clip that we just played, said basically the stats are not backing up the team's wins.
St. John's offensive glass. That's where a lot of opportunities for St. John's came from. St. John's does not shoot the basketball well. It might even be fair to say they shoot it poorly. They were 3 of 16 from deep last night. But it doesn't seem to matter to them.
NewsWire. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Pat Evans is with us from Legal Sports Report. We're going to get into the very latest on sports betting and bringing up a state that could legalize sports that we haven't talked about in a long time. Place a lot of people like to go out there. Get to that in a minute. I don't want to ruin it. All right, but how about a place that a lot of people don't like to go? No offense. Everyone watching in Vermont's going to be upset with me now. Okay, yeah. I get it. That's fine. So listen, since sports betting has been legalized and they overturned PASPA back in 2018, I guess maybe, honestly, Pat, we should be a little surprised that some state didn't decide, you know what, this isn't for us. Now, that's not what we want to hear. Obviously, the more legal sports betting places we have, the better. But what's going on here in Vermont? Is there a real possibility that they may pull back on the legalization of sports betting there?
Craig, first of all, I think I'm not a skier, but I hear there's pretty good skiing in Vermont. So I think skiers might like to go to Vermont. So,
You're mad at me. I'm getting text.
But yeah, so there's a trio of lawmakers up in Vermont who have introduced a bill to repeal the sports betting law and the lottery. Does it have much legs? I don't think so, but it's an interesting bill and by any means because, to your point, in 2018, we repealed PASPA and this huge wave of sports betting went through. And a lot of times you might even think like a few of these, states just kind of legalized without really considering what might be, wrong with the industry or just viewing it as a money grab. And that's what these lawmakers say. They say it's a regressive tax. It preys on the lower income and people susceptible to problem gambling and the likes. And they say it should be repealed and use more progressive taxes to make up the revenue. Again, it doesn't seem likely. Governor Phil Scott signed sports betting into law in 2023, so he's still in power. I don't think he's going to want to repeal a law that he signed. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, it doesn't seem super likely. But I do think, to your point and to our point, there's this huge wave of states that legalize. There's still plenty of, not plenty, but 12 or so states that haven't legalized. And even last week, and we talked about it on Monday, in Minnesota, we've got, the hearings now that it looks like a slam dunk finally to legalize. But now you've got the opposition people coming up and saying, this is why this isn't good. This is the problems it can cause. This is why we need to be careful about this and enact this in the right way. So here we are. We've got one state, Vermont, saying let's repeal this, and we'll see if this is, I don't think it has legs in Vermont, but maybe you start to hear it kind of pop up in other states of people saying, hey, let's rethink this, or let's pull it back. Again, and we've talked about this a lot too, is a lot of states, while they won't repeal it, they're taking a closer look at the industry, putting more protections in place, making sure it's a better industry for the consumer versus maybe the industry. So I think we're going to see more of that for sure, but maybe a few more bills to say, hey, let's repeal this. Whether or not any of them work, it is at least starting that discussion of, and maybe moving that discussion forward of consumer protections and the like.
Okay, well, this could be groundbreaking, even though it is Vermont. Again, no offense. All right, so hate to do it. I did it twice. All right, so what's going on here? Is it possible that it seems impossible to me that a vacation place, let's be honest, like Hawaii, is going to have state legislatures say, yeah, that's fine. Let's not have people visit all of our exotic places and our beaches. Let's have them stay home and bet on a sports betting app. Look, I'm for it, and I understand people in Hawaii want it. They actually have a lot of passionate sports bettors out there. But realistically speaking, Pat, how does this get done, knowing with all the other things to do that could be potentially be taken away from that market? I don't know. It seems like a stretch to me.
Yeah, Hawaii is an interesting one. I mean, just to our previous conversation, it's one of two states that doesn't have any form of gambling. And I think that's kind of note on its own. It's something we've watched pretty carefully over the last couple of years. Sports betting and another bill I'll talk about in a second have been introduced every year since PASPA. Let's get this done. Let's do it. And there hasn't been a lot of traction. Last year was the first time it advanced out of a committee since 2019. So there was a little bit of talk. This year it's passed out of 2 now. Just online sports betting. You see some kind of more friendly voices coming out to say, hey, this is something we can consider. You've got the sports books in there saying, let's bring it into the light. Let's regulate it. Let's do this. It's less about revenue, I think, in Hawaii than other states, as it has been. The governor seems relatively open to it, but you still have plenty of people kind of similar to these Vermont lawmakers, similar to the people in Minnesota holding it up right now, that are worried about the societal harms, what it might do to the lower classes in Hawaii that already suffer a lot because of the tourism industry and how that works. But yeah, to your point, Hawaiians seem to like the gambling industry. They think what they call Las Vegas the ninth island. There's plenty of reciprocations there. And yeah, we'll see if it can continue to move. Again, 2 committees that it's passed through. That's more than in the past. But of note, there was another bill that was introduced this session that would open up casinos in the new Aloha Stadium district in Honolulu. That was voted against. So the casino idea did not fly in Hawaii again. But again, sports betting, something we have not seen move as far as it has this session. Moving forward, more friendly voices. We'll see if it can continue to move, but certainly more momentum than in the past. And, coming into this year, if I would have put 1 or 2 of Minnesota or Hawaii passing, it certainly would not have been Hawaii, but now I kind of put them at the similar odds.
Yeah, no, it's where Minnesota's been a struggle. Okay, so what is I saw that there is a new report here from Nevada about a repeal of sports handle. How much is being held? You're going to have to explain this more to me, Pat. I read it a couple of different times. This is more for a legal sports report article than for me.
Yeah, so since the 50s, there's been an excise tax, a federal excise tax of 0.25% on all handle in sports betting. And it was originally implemented to kind of fund illegal betting or anti-illegal betting stuff, things like that, from the handle in Las Vegas. And yeah, now it's been kind of Representative Dina Titus, who represents the Las Vegas area, and a representative from Pennsylvania, both big gambling states, have tried to, or they have introduced this bill several times over the past couple of sessions to repeal this federal excise tax. And Titus says, back in 2014, when she started championing this issue, asked the IRS where this tax money goes to, which is now up to over $500 million. They didn't know. And so this money's being paid, but they don't know where it is. And now she argues that it hampers the legal industry and gives an advantage to the offshore and illegal operators. So they're looking to get rid of it. And so we'll see if this makes any movement. Again, she's been championing it since 2014. Her co-sponsor and her have been doing it since 2019. So it hasn't had legs in the past, still might not now. On the flip side, there's another reintroduction of the GRIT Act, which is a big problem gambling, or it uses this excise tax funds to fund studies and treatment programs for problem gambling. And so that's also been introduced over the last couple of sessions, also hasn't really gained any traction. So there's this tax that's apparently not being really used, again, over $500 million, which isn't a ton when you get to the federal level, but it's nothing to sneeze at. And so there's these two bills that are in Congress, and who knows if anything gets done on either side. Again, they've been introduced over the last couple of sessions and nothing's happened, but still an interesting little, tax item there in sports betting.
All right, fair enough, Pat. Great stuff. Great information as always. Make sure you say hello to all my friends in Vermont. Tell them I mean no harm, and we'll catch up again soon. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Craig. All
right, Pat Evans watching his Michigan State Spartans with a run here. He's got a lot to watch here coming up in February and March as well. All right, there wasn't a lot to watch in the NBA All-Star game this weekend. I didn't see 1 second of it. I was focused on Saturday Night Live, but they forced Simon Applebaum in to have to watch a little bit of it. He'll give us his thoughts on it next.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
You want me to solve all this tush-push and fourth down malarkey that goes on with the officials? Here's a crazy idea. Get rid of the worst rule in the NFL, and that is forward progress. How about this? Where I knock your ass in the ground is where the ball goes, period. Let's end this whole conversation. Like, if I drop you back 4 yards, then you lost 4 yards. If we get rid of forward progress, this tush-push and everything else is taken care of. Where I put your tail on the ground is where the ball goes. End of conversation. It's the dumbest rule and the most arbitrary rule. The only thing that is a worse call in the NFL than forward progress is the punt that goes out of bounds when you watch the official walk down the sideline having absolutely no clue where that ball crossed over. All I can think of is that Price is Right game go do-de-do-de-do, do-de-do-de-do, as he's walking down the sideline, arbitrarily trying to figure out where the ball crossed over because he's got no clue.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Simon Applebaum of the podcast Tomorrow Will Be Televised is here with us. We've got some fun topics to discuss, NBA, NHL as well, and maybe some Netflix potentially coming back to the NFL again, and how and where and why. We'll talk about that report that surfaced yesterday. Simon, great to have you back here on NewsWire. And of course, the NBA has taken its all-star break to a new level, a level that nobody wants to watch anymore. But the players at least got a couple of extra days off. It's back tonight. I think that, Lakers, I'm sure this game is TNT game, right? So the Lakers got to be more watched tonight than this NBA All-Star game. But needless to say, Simon, they're trying. I give them credit for that. And the NBA is always innovative and trying new ideas and new things. But maybe it's just time to go back to square one and leave it alone.
Or maybe no square one, Craig. And great to be back with you. By the way, the game is, I believe, on ESPN tonight because they have the Wednesday night NBA games nationally. Gotcha. At this very moment, Craig, the NBA, TNT, Nielsen, nobody has released viewership numbers for Sunday night's All-Star game. And we are like 2.5 days away from the game. SNL 50, by the way, which you mentioned a few moments ago, had 14.8 million viewers on Sunday night. The White Lotus premiere, third season on HBO and Max, that had 2.4 million viewers. And it may be that the viewership numbers are so bad they may not even come to the numbers that the CW got on Saturday for their first NASCAR Xfinity race from Daytona, the day before the Daytona 500, which, by the way, ran overtime into prime time on the next night. CW had 1.8 million viewers watching that first Xfinity race, and 2.2 million was a high at 7:30 on Saturday night. Bottom line, the NBA All-Star Game was atrocious. The presentation was atrocious. The format was atrocious. There were Draymond Green trashing the game was atrocious. The whole inside the NBA sort of more treating it like a funeral when the series is going to go to ESPN in the fall. That was atrocious. It was a bad take for ESPN all around. And when you consider the fact this was TNT's last run with both the NBA All-Star Game and NBA All-Star Weekend, which TNT and before that TBS really built into something very special, it had to be a very sad, embarrassing moment. It really, really was atrocious. And it may not be the coup de grace for that All-Star Game, but yesterday on my Tomorrow Televised episode, we have a thing called Prediction of the Week, and I made this prediction. Before the end of this decade, there will be no more major All-Star games. No Major League Baseball, no NBA. We now don't have an NHL, and no Pro Bowl for the National Football League. We may be seeing the end of a whole, phenomenon of All-Star games in major sports.
I think it's possible. Hard to argue with that, Simon. Definitely, especially with the idea that the NBA has done this in-season tournament. NHL, we're going to talk about this now with their 4 nations. I mean, and a lot of leagues are trying to do this in-season stuff to make it more viable, more popular. And let's get to that here, Simon. So some very mixed reviews on the 4 nations thus far. Some people absolutely love to see the passion that we saw the other night. 3 fights in the first 10 seconds. Off the charts discussion on social media and on television as well. You're going to get a prime matchup tomorrow night between the U.S. and Canada. How do you see, Simon, the way that this has worked out thus far?
I think the format has been terrific to have Canada, Finland, Sweden, and the USA, the NHL players representing those different countries in there. However, Saturday night's game, those first few moments, those first 9 seconds may be, I think, a early nominee, maybe the nominee for the most embarrassing, atrocious moment in sports television this year, and maybe in professional sports this year. To have 3 fights in the first 9 seconds of that game, and I get that the Canadian national anthem, the Canadian spectators booing the U.S. national anthem may have caused it. If you came away from the game and not seen SportsCenter afterward on ESPN, you may have thought that. By the way, the game, which was on ABC, had 4.4 million viewers, and that may be the best regular season or during regular season NHL game in a long, long while. However, if you saw SportsCenter right afterward on ESPN, particularly an interview that was done by one of the SportsCenter anchors with the captain of the U.S. team captain acknowledged on air in a live interview that during the time the team was in the locker room before the game, they admitted they're going to fight. They were going to come out and fight no matter what. So it wasn't just the Canadian spectators booing the national anthem. They were set to do this. And this was an embarrassment. It was an embarrassment to the league. It was an embarrassment to ABC viewers. And this is, again, an issue with hockey. It's been a hockey issue for decades. Hockey is not fighting. Hockey is hockey. If you want to go fight, go to a boxing match, go to UFC, go to Bellator, et cetera, et cetera. And NHL's management has been clueless about how to handle this. Warner Wolf, the famous local sportscaster, first in New York and then in New York for many, many years, all along has been against this. He had the great solution. If you drop your gloves, you come out fighting, you're out of the game. I would add, if you're out of the game, you're ejected for 5 games, you pay $25,000 fine for each of the games you're out. That might just do it. And it's time for the NHL to throw some muscle, to show some backbone, both the management and the teams, and say, we cannot have this. We are still the lowest rated professional sport year to year on television compared to the other leagues, and it's time we stop having that regime.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting, Simon, is that a lot of people do not feel the same as you on social media. A lot of people loved seeing that. I'm just saying on Saturday night, I mean, I don't know what that necessarily means, and you can't always trust what you're reading from bots on social media, but certainly a lot of people thought that was a great way to start off, but I understand your point as well. All right, now
and Craig, one more.
Yeah.
Craig, one more thing. The game tomorrow night, which is the finale of this Four Nations, is on ESPN. Awful Announcing suggests that they may have 5.3 million viewers watching. I think it's going to be lower because of the fighting and because it's going to be on ESPN only, not ESPN ABC.
Okay, we'll see. We got you down, Simon. We'll go over-under on that one next week when you bring you back. All right, so this is just a rumor here. We want to be clear, okay? So this is Pro Football Talk, very popular sports website covering the National Football League, intimating that the NFL could bring back Netflix, not just this year, like on Christmas, but on Sunday as well, potentially more often than we saw last year. Simon, do you think that this is a possibility? To me, I mean, they did a great job, Netflix, and I could see them coming back in some sort of way. I find it hard to believe that the broadcast rights from CBS and from Fox would be willing to give up one of their games to Netflix.
Well, let's keep in mind that Bell Bajarian, Netflix key programmer, was interviewed on a sports podcast, and originally the question was, do you want to have the NFL regular season package of some sort? Bell said no. Then the announcer said, well, the NFL can tweak the package in 2029, and then she said, oh, maybe we'll do Sunday Night Football, Sunday Night Football. I think it's a definite stretch. It depends on what happens between now and 2029. However, a Black Friday primetime game could be a possibility in the near term.
All right, Simon, enjoy your weekend. Thanks again for coming on. We'll catch up next week.
You too, Craig. Take care.
All right, we'll be back. Simon does not like fighting, so he's not going to like this next story here with John Rocker and Pat Mahomes. Don't go away.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
You want me to solve all this tush-push and fourth down malarkey that goes on with the officials? Here's a crazy idea. Get rid of the worst rule in the NFL, and that is forward progress. How about this? Where I knock your ass in the ground is where the ball goes, period. Let's end this whole conversation. Like, if I drop you back 4 yards, then you lost 4 yards. If we get rid of forward progress, this tush-push and everything else is taken care of. Where I put your tail on the ground is where the ball goes, end of conversation. It's the dumbest rule and the most arbitrary rule. The only thing that is a worse call in the NFL than forward progress is the punt that goes out of bounds when you watch the official walk down the sideline having absolutely no clue where that ball crossed over. All I can think of is that Price is Right game go do-de-do-de-do, do-de-do-de-do, as he's walking down the sideline, arbitrarily trying to figure out where the ball crossed over because he's got no clue.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. Time now to get to, again, the last licks portion of the show. We will talk a little college football with Deion Sanders. For those of you watching the very popular golf league, the TGL, a little bit of a snafu happened last night with Tiger Woods, and also a celebrity boxing match that, to nobody's surprise at this point, I guess me, was staged. Time now for some last licks. Say it isn't so. Yeah, that's fair. That's what Frank wants to say. All right, so let me give you some backstory here. I'll try to go as quickly as possible. After the Super Bowl was over in New Orleans, a random street altercation occurred with former Major League pitchers with an S, John Rocker, who everyone knows from his days with the Braves, and Patrick Mahomes Sr., the father of Patrick Mahomes, who also pitched for the Mets and Minnesota Twins. They got in an argument. It looked like it was on Bourbon Street or somewhere near. I don't even know. I don't know the dynamics of New Orleans. It was a street, Canal Street. I don't know. And then all of a sudden, Barstool Sports announced that they've figured out a way to solve this problem, this altercation, is that they're going to do a celebrity boxing match in April. TMZ comes out yesterday because I guess a police report had to be filed because it appeared as though these two folks did not like each other. That was admitted that the whole thing was staged. It was all staged. Oh my gosh, they got me. Frank, they got you. I know they got you. They got Luke. So now really, do we really want to watch this after all? I mean, come on. I mean, the stupidity of this, honestly. Like, if you're going to do this, you have to know that there's going to be people watching in the street that thinks that this is real. They did a really good job faking it. But then the police come and they say, what happened here? These two guys were arguing. They end up interviewing them. And then in order to not go to jail or get in trouble, they're like, oh, it was all a setup. So now, no offense, Barstool guys, whatever this match is called, I'm out. I was going to watch it, but now that I know that this whole thing was staged and you fooled me, I guess it's shame on me once. Not going to be shame on you the second time. Not going to happen. So I'm out on this one. Guys, we're not covering this on NewsWire because they got me. They fooled me. We'll cover the Golf League instead. The Golf League is very popular. They do it indoors. It's a lot of virtual hitting. It's actually pretty cool. Rory McIlroy, Tiger Woods is involved in it. A lot of nighttime viewing for this. Tiger Woods participated yesterday. Very funny moment happened. So Tiger Woods, this is like for those of you who play golf and you've ever gone to like a simulator, it's very similar to that. Even maybe if you're going to buy a club and you're practicing with it. I know I've done that with my son many times. So Tiger Woods, they basically tell you how far to hit. That's the challenge. So Tiger Woods, they yelled out, or I guess it was on the announcement, you have to hit this one 199 yards. And the closest you come is how they, score it. So Tiger Woods goes over to his clubs, gets his club. He gets a smaller club. He thinks that they said 99 yards. He hits the club. He hits it exactly 99 yards. This guy's amazing still with all of his issues. But then come to find out, everyone starts laughing because they said that he had to hit it 199. And he completely missed the challenge. So Tiger, of course, so competitive. He's all upset. It's funny, but he's all upset. He's walking over to the announcer. He's walking over to the TVs. He's saying, what happened here? Whatever. I misheard it. So a funny moment was had yesterday there, but it just shows you, number one, how good Tiger Woods still can be. And number two, the competitive nature that he has, even in this new golf league. And look, all attention is good attention for this. Hopefully it ends up succeeding, and maybe some people will go at these indoor facilities and end up watching. You know who's not going on the road? It is Deion Sanders. Deion says, another year of recruiting, another year, I ain't going. Deion Sanders does not recruit. I mean, it is insane. All of the players who want to play for his team in college basketball have to do, or college football, have to do one of two ways. Either number one, they got to love Deion Sanders, want to play with him, or number two, you got to pay me. That's it. Otherwise, he does not go to the kids' houses. He does not sit on the couches. He doesn't do any of the things the legendary coach does. It's just pay or you play for me, Coach Prime, at the University of Colorado. I guess we shouldn't be surprised. He had a lot of success last season. I mean, his son is going to be a top 5 pick. Got a lot of great kids coming back next year. But in this new day and age of college football, NIL rules, folks, and coaches visiting houses doesn't happen anymore like it used to. Okay, what is old, I guess, is old again. But you know what's new is our programming coming up later today. We got Smiley Kaufman at noon, followed by Pharrell, coast to coast, 3 o'clock Eastern. So stay tuned for that. One game tonight in the NBA, so we'll have it covered for you in Game Time Decisions, in-game live game day. And then tonight, it is Sports Rage with Gabe, back on the air exclusively here on SportsGrid. Thanks again to Michael DeCourcy for coming on the show. In addition, thank you to Simon Applebaum from the podcast Tomorrow Will Be Televised, and Pat Evans from Legal Sports Report. Our director is Luke. Our producer is Frank. I'm Craig Mish. See you back here tomorrow for our next edition of NewsWire, where we preview the championship of 4 nations on the ice between the United States and Canada. That's tomorrow night. And our next show is tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern. That is NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you tomorrow.